never ever have I ever heard a woman say, you know what, I did not want help, or I did not need support.
Exactly.
What you do hear women saying when they share their birth stories is that, you know, they wish they had more support, or they appreciated the support that they had, right?
Yes.
One of those two things. And in particular for our women, for our culture, for our sisters, our families out there, is that the known fact is that our families and our communities have not been functioning the way that they were meant to function, the way that we originally functioned before living in captivity, meaning that we don't have as many as the tight circles and networks around us. What's even more true is that coming into the truth, even if you did have a family support before, that family support, you may not have it in the same way anymore, because you have either separated yourself because of this truth, or you've been ostracized because of this truth, right? And so more than ever during your pregnancy and your labor and your birth and those postpartum weeks are so important, that you have the resources available to you, or that you have someone to help organize the resources around you. Because some of these sisters are lucky. They belong to an assembly or to a camp. They have other sisters and families to fellowship with. That being said, are they organizing themselves in a way that's most helpful for you, a new mom? Right? Maybe they are. That's fantastic if they're doing that. And if that's what's happening, maybe some of those sisters that are supporting that work might be interested in this birth work to be able to do it from an even more informed lens with this training and this education. But if you don't have that, hiring a sister, or hiring a doula, hiring a sister who is providing that birth sister support from a Hebraic lens may be exactly what your family needs.
Okay, so shalom, can you please
Shalom.
introduce yourself?
My name's Ayesha, and I'm here today to talk about birth work and the early years, parenting, and everything that goes alike with that.
Awesome. So, you are newly trained as a doula, correct? Or
Correct, as a birth sister.
a birth sister?
So we'll get into that when we talk a little bit more about what a birth sister or what a doula is. But newly trained as a birth sister, but I've been working with families with children 0 to 29, actually, all the way up through the youth, the early years, middle years, and for youth for just about almost 30 years now in the field, in the sector, and doing community work. And so just recently added the doula piece, which includes preconception coaching, as well as pregnancy support and birth and labor and postpartum support. And then doing that from a Hebraic lens for families that are looking for an option that that is within Torah and helps them to put their faith into practice as we rehearse these righteous acts.
Nice. Okay, so tell me exactly, what is a doula?
Okay, so first let's talk about the word doula. So the word doula is actually a byword. And we, as descendants of Israelites, we know very much what bywords can be and what they mean. And in this instance, it's no different. So a little bit of history. Women all over, but so-called Black women in particular, especially here in the Americas, have been doing birth work all along. There has always been somebody in the community, somebody's auntie, friend, or the lady that is everybody's auntie, that's just catching babies, right?
Yeah.
And they were good at it. They had the natural sense for it. They were in tune with the Most High. Whatever their expression of faith was, as well as in tune with the herbs, the healing herbs, and the natural remedies to support conception, to support pregnancy, and then later postpartum. But as with all things, when the system gets involved, there's needs for, um, they create a need for, I guess, validation, right? They create a way to be able to tell somebody else if they can do something or not do it, or how accredited they are at doing it. So that's actually how the licensed midwife began. Essentially, all of these women, whether you want to call them a midwife or you want to call them a doula, they were catching babies, they were doing the birth work, they were doing the community piece, they were supporting those women, supporting those families. But when the system, I guess, interjected itself into that rhythm, they created that need to have accreditation, and with that came the title of midwife, but then the byword, if you will, of doula. So it's a lesser form, because many of these women, as you know, Canada, US, anywhere where we are living in captivity, these Black women, a lot of the women, even though they knew their work inside out, and they knew what to do, and no one could do it better than them, from even the system's own mouth, a lot of them couldn't read or write, right? So it was like, okay, well, yes, you're really great at all of that, but you know what, we're just gonna call you a doula because you don't have the literacy skills for us to license you to call you a midwife. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this training that I recently took to get the, I guess, the educational background of the birth work, because some of it I had already been doing and supporting my own friends and family with their pregnancies and their births. But I was like, I want to, I guess, solidify it, if you will, and just learn more information, and also get connected with the network, right? Because like I said, the work that I had been doing was prenatal, but these women but the lens that I was looking at it was more from the child development piece, and supporting the parent and connecting them with resources for the parent, ultimately for the care of the child. But doing this birth work as a birth sister, that is a different kind of work with the prenatal, with the woman in the prenatal stage.
I see.
Right? So, but this training that I took was actually, it was developed and it is facilitated by a woman by the name of Nicole Diggins, and she's out in New Orleans, and she's a registered midwife and nurse. And she started doing this doula training, but she was doing it from an African-American lens, if you will. So her target audience is to train other so-called Black women in doing this birth work, regardless of what their experience is, if they're experienced, if they're accredited, or if they're just new. Someone, for example, like myself, who was doing work with children and families, but now to do this piece of the work, to come on in and do it. And she really breaks down the history of birth work in our in the culture, as well as the understanding that that when we do this work, we're actually sisters in this birth work, right? And so to do away with this byword and this colonial word that they gave us, doula. So that is why we say birth sister. But what a birth sister or doula is someone that is there to, number one, advocate, or maybe not in any particular order, but to advocate, to educate, and to support. So to ensure that the woman and the family understand what's happening, right? A lot of times people go to the doctor, and let's say, for example, it's not to say that you shouldn't go to the hospital, or you shouldn't go the OB way to throughout your pregnancy if you chose to do that, versus doing a midwife and doing a home birth, let's say, for example. But whatever avenue that you choose to have your labor and your delivery, right? But there's also so much more to being pregnant. It's not just that end piece, right?
Yeah.
And for women that are actually being mindful and purposeful and planning for a pregnancy, then there's even more work to be done, right? Ahead of time, or work that probably all of us should be doing. And if we had the understanding, the knowledge, the understanding, then we could put it into action so that it could be wisdom, right, for our people, and to allow us to be better supported during the journey. And so that's exactly what a doula or a birth sister does. She educates, she advocates, and she supports.
Yeah, well, I feel like everything you're saying is really making me think like that, like when I'm asking what is a doula, I'm honestly like, I heard of people getting doulas, and I just feel like being um a so-called Black woman, right? A Hebrew, it's like I don't know what like you said, we lost a lot of our culture, but and so we're here, most of us are like, what is a doula? Like, what is that? They don't even know what it is. They don't not like you said, there's a lot of women who are now, especially now, awakened, trying to be informed, trying to educate themselves, but there's a lot of us who aren't still and don't have that support we need. So like you said, if we are in maybe some of us don't even know we have a choice to have a baby at home or in the hospital. And so
That's
then if
exactly right.
we
Exactly
choose to
right.
go to
Or
a
a birthing
hospital,
center. There's
well,
also something that's
oh
called
yeah,
the
the
birthing center. So
center.
it's kind of an in-between option. So for example, my daughter, my eldest daughter, just recently had a baby. I just recently leveled up to grandparenthood. I'm a SAFTA. And when my daughter was planning for her labor and delivery, she chose to have it in a birthing center. And a lot of times the birthing centers are attached to the hospital, or they are so affiliated with the hospital. What a birthing center does is it provides an in-between to the home and the hospital setting. So they are close enough that if something did happen that required an intervention, that they could quickly and easily access the resources to be able to do that intervention if needed. But it also provides the environment that's more closely associated with home. So it's a lot more comfortable, it's a lot more welcoming. A lot of times well, before COVID, they would allow, more family members to be present and that sort of thing. And they might have, the jacuzzi, and some hospitals have it, like a jacuzzi in the birthing room or what have you. But the environment is a little bit more warm, if you will, than the hospital setting. So it's like an in-between option. But you're right, a lot of women don't know that they have the option.
Yeah.
And within those options, there are so many other options that a lot of people don't know. And a lot of times, especially if you're a younger mom, right? And even some of the older moms, if you're a first-time older mom, or you're a younger mom, first time, and you're younger, you may go into a doctor's appointment and they may be throwing things at you, and you don't even know that you have the option to say no to something, or to ask, or you might not know what questions to ask, or feel so overwhelmed in the moment, right? And then agree to something, or even if you don't agree, walk away because it's so much to think about. But then when you go to your next appointment, you still end up saying yes to something that you truly don't understand what you're saying yes to.
So it's like what is it called, like a uneducated decision you make, or a
Exactly.
uninformed decision. So somebody most of the time we are in that. First of all, let's start with a lot of us. I'll speak for myself. So having my first, and I have 5, and having my first and second and third, it was just you just do whatever you do whatever you're taught. And so if you were taught from someone who maybe didn't have this wisdom, where then you're just going to go with the culture. And the culture, I noticed, is when you go into the medical facility or wherever you decide you're going to do it with most medical professionals, not all, but most that I have experience with, it's I am the authority and you do what I say.
Right.
And I will not inform you on why. And I don't speak to you as if I give you an option,
or like you have an option. Exactly.
It's this. You are this many weeks. I will see you next week. We will do the blood glucose. We will get this vaccine, and we will take your blood. And be here for this, that, and that. And then when you're in, and then same goes when you are in labor. I'm asking you questions. I need to know this. I need to know that. Why you're in pain. Why you're in, all of this is going on. You need this, you
And
need
then
that,
so
you
I
need
can
that.
tell you what to do.
And nobody told me, they just said they hooked me to IV. Nobody said what was going in my arm, what was getting taken out of my arm, why I needed it. And if I had a reason, like, you know, so everything. So you just do everything. Like, even like
Exactly.
everything I said,
Exactly.
it was like, this is what you're doing, not this is what you're doing. And this is what I would recommend. And this is why I recommend it. Here are the pros, or here's the
And here
benefits.
cons.
And here are, like, you know, what's the opposite of benefits? So I can't find the word right now, but like, here are the risks, here are the risks,
There you
and
go.
here are the
benefits.
benefits or symptoms. So then I
There
can
you
make
go.
my own educated decision, or even what I'm comfortable with, because, you know, like some people are more comfortable with like let's say something small, wearing that big elastic thing around your belly, or getting the blood work to find out if your child's going to have all these different, you know.
Something's even smaller than that. I'm sorry to
Yeah,
cut
tell
you
me. Yeah,
short,
no, tell me something smaller,
but
please.
something even smaller than that. And those are big things what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
And you're right. A lot of times people don't know that they have the option, they have the choice, or that they can ask a question. And if they don't understand, they have the right to have it explained to them in a way that they understand.
Yes.
But some people don't even know that they have the option to choose a time for their next appointment that is mutually convenient.
I was thinking about that when you said even smaller than that. I was like, yeah, like I don't need to
Sorry,
come
I'm like all
next
rumpled
week.
up and trying to
Not
make
even,
myself
well, not even next week. Like sometimes, most of the time it is. Most of the time it is that, like, we're gonna see you next month, or next week, you know, or whatever. And you don't even have to do that. Like with my 5th child, I went there, I seen a doctor 3 times. One to speak to midwives, the second to get an ultrasound, and the third was because I was 42 weeks and I went to the emergency room. Like, wait, I'm having I was having a muscle spasm in my inner thigh. So I was just like, I was kind of getting like, okay, I don't know why I'm not healing. And I feel like I'm going to fall every single time I have this spasm. So if I am in labor and I don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to fall over. So anyway, so I'm just saying, and I was fine. The baby was fine. And I'm not recommending people to do that. I'm just saying that's what I did. I had the choice and decision. It's not illegal to do that. Like, to not see a doctor to get my height and weight every single month and then every single week. And then when I got there, she said, you're gonna have to get induced. And it was 3 days from then, because I was 42 weeks. And she was talking to me like I have to. And I didn't, because they kept trying to bring up this argument about it. I just was trying to they're pressuring me with fear. I was trying to avoid the conversation any longer. Yes, and then I did not even end up getting in. I didn't go back. It was a moment when I realized she wasn't hearing me and she wasn't going to allow me to say no, I guess. Even though I could have, I just have an issue with, like, I don't want to be that person to be like, I feel like they expect me to be that person. That is
exactly why you need a birth sister.
Exactly why I need a birth sister, because a lot of us, or not just anyone, especially when you're pregnant, vulnerable, under that pressure, you need somebody who's going to stand there and tell that doctor, my sister, I don't know, what would you call her? Yes. After you're the doula, what do you call your client?
It depends on how you develop your relationship with your client, right? But at the end of the day is that you will, number one, act as a translator. So when they start throwing around all their jargon and so forth, and like you said, making statements instead of asking questions, right? To the patient, essentially, then you can be there to translate and say to her, like, listen, girl, like, this is what this actually means. Like, Shamazara, they're telling you that they're going to put this IV in you right now, but I want you to understand what that means when you put that IV in right now, okay? Remember what you told me? You told me that you did not want to have any interventions unnecessarily. Well, you've only been in labor for 6 hours, and everything seems to be going okay. You don't need that Pitocin right now, or you don't need to think, do you want to hold out a little bit, right? As soon
Yes.
as they put that in your arm, just remember, you told me you wanted to be able to snack. Okay, you said, I don't care what anybody says, I want to be able to eat. Well, honey, if you put that in your arm right now, you're not going to be able to have that snack. Is that what you want to do? Right? So even something as simple as that, you don't even have to always talk to the medical person. You can speak to your client, or there might be other times when you do need to speak to the medical person, right? And on behalf of your client. But ultimately, your client makes the final decisions. But it's just important that you're there to be able to advocate. You're there to be able to translate and to help them make, like you said, a more informed decision. And it can, now there are different levels of support that you can get with the doula. You can get a package, let's say, for example, where the doula will accompany you to your appointments, right? For exactly that reason, so that all, you decide which appointments that you want them to go to. Like maybe you're not going to go to every appointment, but maybe your client says, you know what, the last appointment, these are the things that they said to me and I really didn't understand. I'd like you to come with me to the next appointment so you can hear what they're saying to me. Sure, no problem, right? Or you might have a doula or a client might say, you know what, I only need you doing my labor and my delivery, right? So it depends on what they want. For myself, what I'm offering to families is anything from, from needing someone to go to the appointments with you all the way through to if you just want to have the support during the labor and actual delivery, or and also that most important part that people forget about often is the postpartum piece, right? And for us from the Hebraic lens, those first 40 days for the birth of the male or the first 80 days for the birth of a female, they're super important. And that's where a doula comes in. It might be something as simple as organizing your circle, your friends and family, so that you can get the support that you need throughout those 40 or 80 days, right? Letting people know what would be most helpful, for you. Because a lot of times when you first have a baby, everyone wants to show up the first week.
Yeah.
Okay, great. You want to see the baby the first week, but I actually in the first week don't want anybody around because I'm still feeling so sore. But how about you come by the second or the third week and you drop off something to eat for me, or you come and pick up my laundry and do a load of laundry.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's
that
exactly
that's a sister might need somebody to help organize her support system so that her support system can work more efficiently to support her and ultimately support the family, right?
Yeah.
So there's all these things to consider, but yes, I think we went off on a long tangent about that.
Well, no, it's everything.
But I think it's important to understand
it's very important.
the role, and especially today, where so many of our women are experiencing negativity in when they go to the hospital. And I'm not trying to scare anybody that is planning on doing a hospital birth.
Well,
but what I am saying is, there is a higher percentage of women that have unnecessary interventions that increase the risk of death for the mother and the child. And let me tell you, they are quick to cut up our women.
My story, like, oh, you don't even, it's a horror story.
So if you don't know, if you don't know better, then you can't do better. So at the very least, when I was praying about coming into this work, because really, to be honest, for me, part of wanting to get this training was I was thinking about my own self. I was thinking about, I already have 3 children, like I mentioned before. I have children and a grandson, but I was thinking about conceiving again. And so in that preparation, in the preconception preparation and just thinking long-term and so forth, and because now I'm walking in the truth, I'm super hypersensitive to what is going on. And I was like, if I was to conceive and have a child, who would help me to bring forth this child? Because I don't want to have certain experiences. I would like someone who is what we would in the Hebraic sense considered clean, right? Versus unclean, to help me have that experience. And in that search, what I found, certainly I'm here in Canada, in Toronto, I'm in Toronto, it is very, very hard to find a sister, and then also a sister that is walking closer to my walk than not, that I would feel comfortable having that privilege to be part of my birth experience, right?
Yeah.
And when I seen that challenge, it made me say to myself, well, if I'm looking for that and I can't find it, there must be other sisters out here that have the same thought and that are also looking and can't find it. So how about I do something about it and try to fill a little bit of the gap anyways? And that's how I ended up getting into the birth work piece to add on to the early years and youth and community work that I'd already been doing.
Okay, so my question for you is, when you couldn't find a doula or midwife, because you wanted to, have a more holier birth plan, correct? Right? Is that safe to say? So I fell into the same problem where I was planning my unassisted home birth and I could not find well, from my knowledge, I figured, okay, well then I didn't want to go with the midwives anymore because I was like, I could do this thing. And I felt like the Most High was leading me to do unassisted. But I was like, but I still wanted more information. And I felt like an instant support because I don't have like any sisters nearby. I don't have an assembly. I don't have a support group like a parent or I have a parent that wouldn't mind being there, but I wanted a holy birth plan. And like I said, I was raised like just do what they say. And even when she was there with me, every time she's with me, she just listens to whatever the doctors say. Like anything the doctors say, she just does it. So she would encourage. When I am like against what the doctor is saying, she like gets kind of uncomfortable because I feel like I've been making her uncomfortable
because you're asking questions and
I'm
she's
asking
not used
questions.
To it.
I'm saying no. I'm being difficult, like in her eyes.
Right.
So that's not what I wanted. So of course, but so then anyways, I called doulas. I just looked local doulas. I wasn't, I guess, so concerned. I do think about it, like about how maybe they're not sisters. I called the sisters though, but maybe they're not in the walk, they don't know my beliefs. So those doulas I called, they said they could not be there unless I had a midwife or unless I had a doctor. So that was another question for me, for doulas. What can you not do, in being a birth sister? You know what I mean? Like I understand you could probably do everything, but I'm saying legally, what is it illegal for you to like do? Because I felt like it would be okay if maybe somebody was there supporting me, informing me, making sure I was making the right decisions. But the doulas were telling me, but in my area, were saying, they don't unless there's like a midwife there too. They wouldn't be there.
So essentially, because of going back to licensing and certification, so you can do a training and get certified by whatever organization is that you get your training from, right? They can certify you to say that you completed the training. And then, but on, I guess, on a government level, internationally, there is an association that is recognized internationally. They offer training, they offer, they connect people, they have a network, they offer professional development for doulas and so forth. And I am being purposeful when I use the word doula in this instance, because such an organization is very much feeding into the systemic racism that occurs, right? Because they offer a certification that's recognized internationally, but they determine what trainings qualify or are eligible. So for example, then for example, like the training, for example, that I took with the sister it's sister midwives. And if you're interested in becoming a doula, or connecting with a network, or they also have a directory. So your directory, the home birth, Hebrew home birth directory, is specific for sisters in the truth, looking for other sisters in the truth doing this birth work. This directory is a generic one, I'll say, for the so-called Black woman, if you will, right? So this is for African Americans, and that's the way that it's packaged. And the directories for African Americans and for African American birth workers, right? That's actually from that directory is how, that was what I found. So when I was doing my search and I was trying to find a sister, could I just get a sister? That was the first thing. Then my second thing, once I started finding a sister, was hard. The second thing was now, okay, well, can I find a sister in Canada? Because everything that was coming up was sisters in the States, right? South of the border. Then when I did start finding the sisters that are doing this birth work, the midwives and even some doulas, the ones that I found, and listen, if you're watching this recording and you're in Canada, you're doing this birth work, or you know of something, please drop it in the comments, let me know, because I would like to get connected. But I couldn't find, number one, an organization or a service that was providing specific service and being purposeful about targeting the so-called Black women in Canada or in Toronto or in the GTA and surrounding areas. And the ones that I found that were that were working, I guess, for an organization, a lot of those organizations or those individuals themselves were promoting things that are against Torah. I'll say that. Okay. And so for me, that made me really uncomfortable.
Okay.
Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
So that's okay for other people, but it wasn't okay for me. And so I just wanted someone, even if they weren't in the truth, I wanted them to not be promoting things that are against Torah in their work.
Yeah.
Because they're literally advertising their birth work, and I guess just the same way that I'm being purposeful about targeting the Hebrew community, they were being purposeful about targeting communities that were against Torah. And that made me uncomfortable. And I didn't want that for myself. Right. Good and I'm not saying that their work is not good work, or that they wouldn't have good information. But for me in my walk, if the Most High still grant me to be able to become a mother again, I want it to be as clean as possible. I want to try to prepare myself to be as clean as possible, in my mind, in my heart, in my spirit, in my body. And I would like everyone around me to also be as clean as possible.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. Like, well, what does the word say, right? Do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, and so that we may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect, good, that's functional, acceptable and perfect will. Like, that's his will, exactly what you were trying to do something according to his will, which is, that's why I started Hebrew home birth. And now that we're starting, getting this conversation going, we see, I'm seeing more like-minded moms, and that's where I'm seeing there's a need. And so, that's why I asked, what can you not do as a doula?
Right. So to speak to that piece is that, I guess what it comes down to it, technically a birth sister or a doula cannot be the only medical person to deliver. You need to have either a midwife deliver you, be present, or a doctor, right? A doctor and a midwife, those are the two that can legally do all the legal components of the birth work that happens, right? And the medical piece. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that if you decide to do what you did, I'm so proud of you, by the way, and doing a free birth. And that actually came to my mind, and it scared me very much when I thought to myself, oh my goodness, maybe I might just have to like wing it and do it on my own, and then figure out the steps afterwards, what to do afterwards once you have actually of giving birth. But if a sister decided that they wanted to do a free birth, or if a sister had was planning to do a home birth, and the baby came before the midwife arrived, then that's what happened, and who was present was present. Do you understand?
Yeah. But it's not
legally a midwife. You're supposed to have a midwife or a doctor present for your birth.
Well, and okay, and so if it's, but I mean, unassisted, women can do unassisted. It's just that the doula should, is not recommended that the doula assist in the birth. Like,
Right.
so I'm saying, I understand. So from my research, I see that like these certification organizations that you were mentioning, some of them say no. And then I've seen others who certify other doulas who say, it's okay if a doula is at an unassisted birth.
Right. So I think it depends on.
So it's not illegal to be there to be inform the mother and educate the mother, and the mother can pay
the
you.
Baby,
and
right.
Well, or to do what because that's what my research was like, okay, the mom said she wants to do unassisted. So if the mom catches the baby herself, that's fine. But if you see the baby, the mom is going to need your help, then you are trained to have been able to accompany, right. So
you can assist them on. Okay, so I think what it comes down to is the birth certificate and all of those pieces, right? If the family is deciding to register the birth of the child and all of those pieces, that's a legal document. So that legal document, it has to be guaranteed by a medical professional. So that's registered, I guess. I'll use the word registered versus certified. I'm not sure what the correct language is, but for example, a midwife has to be registered, not just certified and have the education, but she has to be registered. She has to be licensed. That's the word, licensed. Just the same way as a medical doctor has to be licensed, right? Because a doctor could lose his license to practice, then he would not be able to assist you technically, right? If he had lost his license. I don't know which way to go, girl. Sorry.
Yeah.
So that is the thing. Now, something that I actually just learned recently by experience with my daughter and my grandson, because my daughter had planned with her birth plan to give birth at the birthing center, but it didn't end up going that way. And again, talking about having someone there to advocate for you and be able to ask questions and so forth. But here was my daughter who had been in labor for a few days. Oh, sorry. So just really quickly about my daughter, and you and I talked about this offline, but just in case there's any sisters out there that either have a spontaneous home birth, right, a spontaneous unassisted home birth, or who have an intentional unassisted home birth. But what we learned, so what happened was my daughter had planned to give birth at the birthing center, and then she ended up being in labor for, I guess it started probably even 2 days. So they sent her home 3 times.
Wow.
And they just kept sending her home. And they had already sent her home twice earlier that day and once the day before. That same day that she ended up having him in the night. And what happened was she ended up having an unassisted home birth. And then when she called the midwives, this is where the midwives let her down, because when she called the midwives knew that she was already expecting. They knew that she had been sent home 3 times from the birthing center, right? They knew that it could happen at any moment. And even though she had not planned a home birth, but a midwife is trained to support families in a home birth, what should have happened is the midwife should have came to her home. But instead, what the midwife did was tell her to call the ambulance. when she called the ambulance took her to the closest hospital to her home, not the birthing center where she had planned to give birth. And that had all her medical information, had, you know, all her midwife stuff and so forth. And so from the moment the ambulance got involved is the moment that, well, I'll say the climax of the decline in the care that she received and the climax of the systemic racism in medical medical care that she received began. But really it began when they kept telling her, no, you're not in labor. No, you're not in labor. And she's telling them, listen, I'm ready to have this baby.
Wow.
Because she was young, because she was a first-time mom. And quite honestly, I really believe because she was a woman of color, you know. And so when the ambulance came and they took her to the nearest hospital, and it just happened to be one of the poorest hospitals around in the GTA area and surrounding area. Poor meaning in status of care, right?
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't opt to go to that hospital, is what I'm saying to you, right? If they had an option, hence why she planned to give birth somewhere else, even though she lived closer to that particular hospital. And they told her once she arrived that if the placenta was not still attached to her and the baby wasn't still attached to the placenta, that she would have to prove that it was her child, and that CAS would come in and the baby would have to be with CAS until such time as they could prove that it was her child.
So who said
even
that?
knowing,
who
even having a medical history with another local hospital,
yeah, so
having a midwife, going to all her checks and everything, everybody knowing what her, you know, what her status was and so forth, what the expectation was, even though the hospital had sent her away and so forth, even though she called the midwife before the midwife told her to call the, sorry?
Who said that?
The hospital. The hospital informed her.
Well, because they didn't know her, they didn't have the information, they're saying.
That hospital didn't know her, right, and didn't have.
So that's what I think is like, you know, really
it's a lie. Even if they had brought her to, sorry to cut you there, even if they had brought her to the hospital or the birthing center where she was expecting to give birth, if the protocol, if the placenta was not still attached to her and to the baby, she would still have to prove that it was her child.
Yeah, and I think the way that she was able to prove that would be where those midwives or wherever her doctor was, where they would have to bring that stuff. So I think that brings.
Well, no, they would have to do DNA and all that stuff.
Well, I feel you, but like, do you think like that's what they said? But really, are those like what? That's what I'm trying to understand. Like, I guess that was going to bring me to my next question. That's why I'm saying that is because, if you have that care, because that's what I was told. If you have the ultrasound with your name, it has your name and your, that's how I was trying to cover myself when I did my unassisted birth and didn't want to tell anybody. Over the phone, I remember I told you I forgot that, but now it's coming to me. So it was, I needed to have a ultrasound with with the picture of the baby, and obviously it had the date, it has your name, so that's one.
It has all your information.
It has all my information. It has my doctor's information, so they know that was me there having that baby at that time. And then also, yeah, I think that was the only thing I needed. And then when I had my checkup, I had my baby, you know, like I already had that set up where who's going to check me and who's going to check my baby. So if I had those doctors in line where I'd probably seen them before when I was pregnant. So I had those doctors, I seen them when I was pregnant. So when I delivered my baby, I would have those doctors see the baby. So then there was nobody in the way, so they could sign whatever papers I needed them to sign, which was birth certificate, papers, you know, that was it. Only a proof of a home birth. That's what it was. Like they give you a paper that says that you had a home birth, because that's where, and it says you had the person who was there to notarize it. I mean, the person who was there, if anybody was there, you write it down, the address. And so it was my husband. So we went and got it notarized. And then we had, and the doctors were signing, 2 doctors to sign. And yeah, only one doctor, actually, one doctor. And it was one doctor that signed it off. because she saw me that was the doctor that I saw in the emergency room. And she was
Right.
so yeah, I went to go see her for my checkup, and a week later after I had the baby. And so that was all I needed. So I think
So
it's mothers,
certainly,
your daughter wasn't prepared for that. So I feel
right.
like for those moms out there who decide to do unassisted, to make sure that at least they get the ultrasound photo, a doctor to see you while you're pregnant at least once, and then a doctor to see you and your baby after you're pregnant at least once. So then when you have that paper, there's no reason why that doctor shouldn't sign that paper.
Right. I think in addition to those things, what my advice would be is for any birthing mother or pregnant mother or doula or midwife is to find out what the rules are in your province, your state, your city,
Yeah, yes,
right?
yes, for sure.
Because I think it varies. Certainly in the United States, I know that it varies state to state. And then for Canada, I'm not sure if it varies a province to province, but the best thing to do would be to find out if this is something that you want to do, to have an unassisted home birth, okay? Because if you're having an assisted home birth and you're having a midwife be present, and that's something else I think that people need to understand, because a lot of times people might be like, well, why do I need a doula if I have a midwife? So what you need to understand with the midwife is, with a midwife, you're going to get a little bit more of, I'll use the word homier, I guess, experience, right? You will be able to, a midwife will be more open to a natural approach to your birth plan and to your pregnancy and so forth. But you're still, and a midwife might have even more visits during the prenatal period and the post-natal period as well. Postpartum, they will have more visits than an actual doctor. But what people don't realize is they think that when you have a midwife, the moment you start feeling like you're in labor, that when you call your midwife up, they're going to show up and be there. The midwife, not unlike the doctor in a hospital experience, doesn't come until the last stage of labor, and in those active moments, that's when the midwife comes. So for the first and second stage of labor, they're not there, and they'll probably give you minimal support depending on the person. Like maybe you have someone that goes above and beyond, right? But in terms of the types of care and support and the level of support they give, it's not to the same extent where doula is giving you more hand holding, if you will. I use the word hand holding, meaning giving you more support along the way, depending on what you guys have decided upon at the beginning of your relationship, right? Of the birth sister client relationship. That doesn't mean that the doula is going to show up at the first pang, but the doula will be available by phone or by video or what have you, to checking in with you, and with you to check in with her, if you have a question or whatever, from the very first stage, from the very first pang, all the way to the end and postpartum, right? For you, so that you have that support. So maybe not in the maybe when you feel that first pang and you're still kind of good and you're going about your day or what have you, or maybe you're like my daughter and your first pang started the day before your child even came, right? So you could talk to her, you can ask a question, hey, this happened, or I'm feeling this, or what have you, and so forth. She may come and check in on you once during that first stage. Maybe the second stage, she comes in more, but she will, and then as you progress, because you're having that constant communication throughout from the very beginning, she will come to you sooner and be with you for the whole duration of the rest of that labor. Make sense?
Yeah, and so that's why I asked. So like I really desire to have a doula with me. So I don't feel like it should be illegal for a doula to be there to help me and my husband. Imagine if I didn't have, because I had my son 4 hours and I was in labor 4 hours. But imagine if it was maybe 20 hours in labor and my husband needed a
36
rest.
hours.
36 hours longer. And my husband needed a rest, or he was then and I have 4 other children running around. Like,
that's right.
I would have needed it, that's why I feel like, imagine it was longer. If someone could help even assist my husband, where it's like, okay, I need a rest. I've been up here, I've been awake for so long. I want to be awake when the baby's born. So I want to hire a doula to help support my wife. So
Exactly.
that's why I'm asking these questions, because I want to see, okay, for all those women who are trying to plan their birth, okay, maybe they want a midwife, maybe they want a hospital birth, maybe they decide they're going to get a home birth. I want a midwife, maybe I don't. I want a doctor there,
Right.
maybe I don't. I want to do unassisted, but I want a doula too. I want that. I want to know if that woman
Right.
there, if we have every woman, a Hebrew woman, to say, is it okay for me to get hire and pay a sister to assist me? Well, not assist me in giving birth, but be there for informing me, to comfort me like a doula does, and educate me and support me. Can I pay that sister to do that? Because I understand
100%.
you might have a daughter, might, like you said, like you might have a mother, you might have a, all these other, like you mentioned at the beginning, we were
Sister or friend, yeah.
we were those birth
Those supports
workers.
and those
We
coaches,
were.
exactly.
That was part of our culture at one time. Well, now we live in a different time, but it's like, is it okay to pay a sister who is trained in that and will support
It
my
is not only okay,
unassisted?
but I would encourage you to do that, and not just because I'm
Yeah, that's
offering
why
the
I'm
service, but because, like I said, I mean, everyone will decide for themselves how much support they need, right?
yes,
And someone might say, you know what, I 100% want to go to the hospital route. I want to go to the hospital route. I'll feel more comfortable if I was at the hospital. But at the same time, where they might, yeah. So, I mean, it's for every family and every woman to decide what level of support that they might need. But what is what I've never ever met a woman, a mother, who, whether she be young, whether she be old, whether she whether she be a sister or from another nation. And I've worked in a lot of communities. I've worked in the Asian community. I've worked in the Southeast Asian community. I've worked with so many different communities, different cultures and so forth, working with pregnant women, and women with young children. And never ever have I ever heard a woman say, you know what, I did not want help, or I did not need support.
exactly.
What you do hear women saying when they share their birth stories is that, they wish they had more support, or they appreciated the support that they had, right?
Yes.
One of those two things. And in particular for our women, for our culture, for our sisters, our families out there, is that the known fact is that our families and our communities have not been functioning the way that they were meant to function, the way that we originally functioned before living in captivity, meaning that we don't have as many as the tight circles and networks around us. What's even more true is that coming into the truth, even if you did have a family support before, that family support, you may not have it in the same way anymore, because you have either separated yourself because of this truth, or you've been ostracized because of this truth, right? And so more than ever during your pregnancy and your labor and your birth and those postpartum weeks, are so important that you have the resources available to you, or that you have someone to help organize the resources around you. Because some of these sisters are lucky. They belong to an assembly or to a camp. They have other sisters and families to fellowship with. That being said, are they organizing themselves in a way that's most helpful for you, a new mom? Right? Maybe they are. That's fantastic if they're doing that. And if that's what's happening, maybe some of those those sisters that are supporting that work might be interested in this birth work to be able to do it from an even more informed lens, with this training and this education. But if you don't have that, hiring a sister, or hiring a doula, hiring a sister who is providing that birth sister support from a Hebraic lens may be exactly what your family needs. And these days, I had my children a long time ago. My eldest is 24, my middle is 19, and my youngest is 14 years old. So when I was having children, you had, a baby shower, and then maybe after the baby was born, people might come and still come bearing gifts or what have you. But these days, they're having gender reveals. They're having a big, huge party for that. I even see Hebrews doing this, and there's nothing wrong to celebrate life and the birth. I'm just saying, but if your community is coming together and you guys are spending all this money on these elaborate gender reveals and these elaborate baby showers, and spending so much money in decorations and fancy presents for the family, please, y'all, organize yourselves and put that change together and give it to a family so that they could have the support that they need during the pregnancy and during that labor and that birth, so they could have an advocate for them, so they could have that support, so the husband could have some support, like you said, as well as the birthing woman, and in particular, like I said, during the actual, at all stages. I can't even think of one stage that's more important than the other. Even if you haven't conceived yet and you're thinking about conceiving, conception begins in the spirit. It begins in the mind. So if you have started, if the Most High laid it in your heart that you want a child and you want to bring forth children in this kingdom, and that's something that you want to do, then there are things that you could be doing to prepare your mind, to prepare your heart, to prepare your spirit for. And that's where preconception coaching comes along. And there's ways to do that within a Hebraic lens. There's definitely all natural approach and remedies to help support the detoxification of your body, the physical detoxification, and then the fasting and prayer to go along that, to prepare your spirit, right, for that process to bring forth. So I guess, I don't know, I'm really passionate about this work, and about just child development and parenting and so forth. And it's just really, really important, I think, that our people have the tools, and having the tools starts with being educated about what your choices may or may not be. And so that you can make informed decisions about your conception, about your pregnancy, about your labor and delivery, and about your postpartum experience. And part of that comes in developing a birth plan, but a birth plan is good to have, and you should create one, but you also have to know that at the end of the day, however the Most High decides that your birth experience is going to happen is what he decides, but you have to prepare. So just like success is when when preparation meets opportunity, it's the same way that when knowledge and understanding are put together in action, that breeds wisdom. Well, so now good. That we know better, let's do better. Let's put that action together, and let's work together to do this kingdom building, and to bring forth these children in as clean as possible. So this next generation that comes forth, they have a chance to be the progenitors of the 144, because we know this time is coming, right?
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
That's so good, like everything you said. And I definitely want to do another episode about the birth plan, but I want to I just want to ask one more question concerning this. Please. About the certification and organizations and trainings. I just want to, the reason why I asked this, I want to, so and you can expound and give me understanding. And also, I'm not on screen right now because the baby I need to nurse my baby.
Nurse, so that's okay.
Yeah, so I think
that's what this work is about.
Yeah, this is all about, right? So it is do you need, okay, everybody needs to be informed. I just want to, I'll bring it back. The reason why I asked this, so I don't sound ignorant, is like you said, we were at one time birth workers, and maybe we didn't do the training and all that stuff, but because we were in these experiences, and we live in 2020, and you can buy 2021 rather, and you can go online, you can learn so much in this age of information online with books, take courses, all different types of things. Does a doula need, or a birth worker, or a birthing sister need to actually get certified through any of these organizations? It's awesome if you can, but what if maybe you haven't yet, or you can't yet? can you, is it, do you have to be certified or licensed in any way to be paid as a, you know,
as
birthing,
a birth worker, or as a
as
birth
a,
sister or a doula? So
yeah,
the answer to your question is no. So you do not need to be certified. However, I would recommend the training. And just to be clear, just because you take the training doesn't and complete the training, it doesn't automatically certify you. There's next steps.
yes.
Okay, so if you can do a training, and after you're done the training, you're yalla, go ahead, you can begin providing your service and essentially start your business, right?
Yes.
um, and before that, even doing the training, or simultaneously as you're doing the training, if you're already working with families, you can do that work. But in terms of being certified, then there's next steps that you have to do. So there's a certain amount of birthing hours birth work hours that you need to put
Oh,
in.
okay. So
You need
that,
to attend a certain amount of births, live births. Like so, there's requirements that allow you to become quote unquote certified, right?
and that would also give those moms something to look at for anyone, whether you're certified or not, to see
Right.
and say, okay, you're certified, but you only attended one birth, you don't have any children of your own, and maybe I don't
No,
really,
you're not certified. You're trained,
you're trained,
but you're not certified.
you're trained but
Exactly.
not certified. So
Right.
okay, but then you possibly could be trained and then have been to multiple births before you even knew that doula was a thing, and then you get on, you know what I mean, you get on, you got a bunch, you attended a
So
bunch of births.
if you have supported and attended births before the training, those do not count towards the certification. The
Okay.
certification needs to those births need to happen either during the training or afterwards, is my understanding of
Okay,
how
okay,
it
I
works.
get it, I
And
understand.
then, oh, thank you, Pumpkin. And then that was my daughter, sorry.
No, it's okay.
And then so then the other thing to take into consideration, like I said, is that there are all sorts of different institutions, if you will, or organizations that are providing this training, right? Doula
Yeah.
training, right? But everybody's certification process may not look exactly the same, though they may model each other, if you will, right?
Well, where
And
do they
then,
get this certification? Like, how does that come about? Because the reason why I asked this is because there was a one that I was considering near me, and then I was doing the
mhm,
research on her website, and
mhm.
she has a channel, and she mentioned that she did not get certified, but well, she didn't say she didn't get certified at all. I didn't see where she said she got certified. I only seen where
Okay.
she said I did not get certified by this organization, doulas of
Oh,
North
the donut.
America.
Right,
So she said she
exactly.
didn't
So
get
that
certified, but then this is the thing. Now she certifies people. So I want to understand
exactly.
where
Is it a
these
sister?
people,
Is it a
she's a sister, but not like a
but
Hebrew
not like in
sister.
the truth,
Yeah.
sister. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, no. Yeah, so exactly. So remember when I mentioned before that there's an organization that is recognized internationally,
Okay.
and they have a list of trainers, if you will, or training programs, if you will, that they recognize and will certify you. So if you go through that okay, let's say you go through ABC's training program and go through whatever certification requirements that they say, which probably mirror this international organizations, then and ABC is on their list, then you can be certified and have that organization's name behind you,
And
right?
it
Which is,
just
I believe, is pardon?
and it just really looks good, but it doesn't,
Listen, this is what it is. It
because
was the system.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you straight. The system created their own system. Okay, so that's really what it is. And so what has happened, I think, because when you go through and you read, and I took the time and I literally navigated their entire website, went through all the reading material and all the things that they have in regards to their certification and what they look for in X, Y, and Z. And it is very exclusive. It excludes many. right? And now that there have been some groups come and form, or other organizations like the sister from New Orleans, Nicole, that I did her training. Her training, or her organization, is called Sister Midwives, and I highly recommend it. It was excellent, excellent, excellent. And they still have meetings. Like our training group was the first online training group that she did. She usually does them in person, but the group still meets once a month in a Zoom, and sharing network. I have a group. They started a group chat, and the messages, the sisters just sharing information from all across. I think I was the only Canadian, but all across the US, the participants still sharing information, and different things and trainings and just things for your clients and so forth. So it was really, really great. The real sense of sisterhood. Even though that she's not in the truth, she delivers her program from I'll say a spiritual or faith-based component.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, she is Black focused, right? The so-called Black focused, and so it's really honing in on purposely training Black women so that they could support other Black women and Black families, or so-called Black families. So I recommend her. But there are others. Like there's also the Black Doulas Association, which also, I guess, seems to me like they're developing into to a quote unquote Black version of this other international one. But the point is that there's no government regulations on what certification looks like for a doula. So really, anybody can say that they're providing a training and then certifying the person.
Oh, so then
right?
certifying. Okay.
Right. So for example, to become a midwife in the US or Canada, there is specific government regulations and things that they need to meet, requirements that they need to meet in order to be able to say that they've provided this training, to say that I have taken this training and I've become certified, then to register with their organization and to be licensed to practice, right? For a doula, they don't, that it hasn't happened yet.
How'd you answer that? About the whole the government regulation, because that's, I guess I didn't know the words for it, but that's what I was asking because of everything. I mean, it would be kind of awesome if we could figure something out and be grandfathered in before the government started regulating, to make like a holy birth sister thing. But yeah, maybe that's what the Most High is leading at some point. But because I feel like it's very hard to find like doulas, or all over the place for us, like I said, I've been sitting here, I'm in Rhode Island, there's not even an assembly in Rhode Island, there's nothing here, nobody, nobody. And so, but a lot of us we're living in such a time where it's like most of us are like-minded, where we're like, we want to stay kind of away from the hospital right now.
Right.
I mean, some people are going still, they're fine. But depending on who you are, a lot of us are. So then it's like, well, then what is another safe option and legal option? You know what I mean? But like where you're going to be informed and educated, because like I said, when I made my unassisted home birth video, I just wanted to share my experience in what the Most High was doing in my life. And then like so many people in the comments were like, the Most High is leading me to do the same, or this and that,
and probably because they can't find the support,
and they asked all the support. So we need the support from one another. And so that's why, in a way, I was like kind of asking, like, first of all, can a woman, basically, can I, because like I said, the doulas were saying no, I cannot be there. I was like, well then I want to know, as just a woman about to have a baby, am I able to choose the birth I want? Am I really able to choose the birth plan I want? Well, I was told no, I cannot. Well, that's probably because of the type of people, or the people who were certified under certain, were just like, no, that's not what I want to do.
Right.
So, and then the second question was, okay, well, what about now? I want to learn how to do, I'm getting more educated. I'm learning. I'm looking at thank you for sending me about that woman's, and it's happening right after when I chose to celebrate the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So it's like
Right.
right after it. So I'm like, that seems
Perfect
like I
timing for
might,
you.
yeah, perfect timing. So I was like, well, then great. Now, but at the beginning, I was like, okay, now we got a stimulus. So it seems like I'll be able to take the class. But if I didn't, um I it doesn't seem like I would be able to take that class, and unless a miracle came about, which I believe the Most High would if He leads me. But how many other moms or women who are home, who love family, love women, love children, want to support their sisters, and want to be educated, and want to get paid if they can, and we, because we love supporting our people, want to pay our own people to say, hey, I am looking for one. I would love to pay you, sister. Or,
Right.
hey, I am one, like a birth worker, and I would love to assist you if I
To
am
support
if
you.
I am
Exactly.
support you if I am obviously go through whatever you would what you're looking for if we're a great match. So
Right.
anyway, so yeah, that's where I was like kind of going at. Like, I feel like this is, yeah, I'm just so grateful that I was able to talk to you and get this information, because it answered a lot of the questions of what a doula is, what they do, and then the names and where. I didn't even know about our history about being birth workers. Like, I knew that we were doing something, but like, you just brought it to another level, like where it's like, actually, it was like what we did. It was our culture. Like, my
Right.
grandmother, I was like, when I have a baby at home, she was like, don't ever do that again. Went crazy. And then I was like, how were you born?
Brainwashed, right?
I said,
And
how were
don't
you
and
born? And she said, at her house. And she's like, but the midwives came. But I'm
let me
thinking,
tell you
in
something.
segregation, they were probably called a midwife, but she probably wasn't licensed. She probably wasn't. That woman came over to the house. And I was, and then and then once I told her that, she was like, well, when she told me that, then I was like, okay, so what has changed
Well, I'll
other
tell
than
you
our
what's
mindset?
changed. The system was purposeful in brainwashing our people and convincing our people that their way was better than the natural way. Meanwhile, our people were birthing their babies, never mind. When their women were in the throes of labor or having complications in their pregnancies or their labor, they knew exactly what mammy to call,
Yeah.
to come and support.
I'm sorry
Sorry.
if you lost me. It's just,
No, no. Um, so it was our people all along, right? And I mean, let's just take it back to scripture because at the end of the day, we know who the first Hebrew midwives were, Shipra and Pua. And the Most High names them in Exodus, and in particular Exodus 15 to 21, and that really moves my heart when I was called to do this, or how I feel I was called to do this work in, like I said, because of what I wanted for myself, but then realizing that there may be a need for others. And let me tell you, there was a block because when I first thought about doing this work and getting trained, this was before COVID happened and the pandemic, and the lady that was offering the training, she was only offering in-person trainings and in the States. And then I had a conversation with her, and we were trying to plan and organize how we could get her to come to Toronto to provide her training to Toronto. Because I thought, there's got to be other sisters out here, even if they're not in the truth, but that are interested in doing this work and might be interested in this training. But it so happened that the way that she likes to do her in-person training and the scheduling of it, it fell over the preparation day and the Shabbat. And I wasn't having it. I was like, well, I could help organize everything to happen, but I can't participate on the prep day, the evening of the prep day, or on the Shabbat. And I got I got a little bit of pushback from her, but she was understanding, but she kind of stuck to her guns. Well, this is what I need. Like, that's not going to work in order for you to get what you need out of the training. And some people, in my life family who are not in the truth and not keeping Torah, they're like, oh well, it's only a few Saturdays, like, it's not a big deal. But for me, it was a big deal. So I ended up putting that on the back burner and just kind of left it. And things happened, and life continued. And then when COVID happened, something that I've been praying about in my own life for a long time is, I've been praying about asking the Most High, like, please show me, how can I help myself? Help me to help myself? How can I use the skills that I already have and the experience I already have to not only help myself and my family in terms of, providing and bringing in income or extra income, but how can I use that work to support the building of the kingdom? And that was like my continuous prayer. And then it just so happened one day, out of the blue, I got an email from this lady, and she was like, "Hey, I'm offering an online training because of the pandemic." I was like, "What? An online training? This is awesome. Like, this is great news." And then when I checked it out, I seen that the timing worked. It was like during the weekday and so forth. And then I was like, "Okay, how am I going to pay for this?" And just similar to you, I guess, in the sense, like, being happy about the stimulus, my stepdad actually had been calling me and telling me to come over and for a visit. He kept telling me, "I go, come over, I have something for you." And when I went over, right around the same time that I got this email, I went over there and he had an envelope for me. And there was money in the envelope, and he gave me the envelope, and that's how I was able. And I was like, "Okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. Is this what you're telling me that I'm supposed to do, Most High? I'm supposed to take this training and I'm supposed to do this work." And so here we are. So I was super thankful when I came across the Hebrew Home Birth directory. And I just want to give thanks to the Most High for putting it and laying it in your heart and your mind to put it together. I'm excited about this work that we're about to embark on. And once again, if you're listening to this recording and you're already doing this work, whether you're south of the border, in particular, if you're in Toronto and the surrounding areas, please put a comment in so that I can see that we can connect, and let's do this together. That's it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Like, you don't understand how much I got today. And I'm sorry my video is not on. My phone broke. Well, my charger broke. So when it died, there goes my photo. So
not to worry. I think the bulk of our technical issues came from my side today. We'll get it right for the next one.
Yeah, no problem. I like whatever. This is life, right? So yeah, so you pretty much answered all the questions that I had for this. I look forward to hearing more about a birth plan, how to what a birth plan is, how to do a birth plan, create one, and how a doula can support that and assist in that. And also how, as Hebrews, how do we make it holy, set apart, So I look forward to talking about that the next time. And I thank you so much for your time. And
thank you.
And yeah, can you tell us about the Exodus 15 before we go?
Why don't we read it? Let me get my word and let's read it out loud. Also, just before we think, I would love to talk about the birth plan, but I think for those sisters who haven't yet conceived, I think even before your birth plan, it's important to talk about preparing yourself for that during that preconception time. There's a preparation that needs to happen for your mind, for your body, and for your spirit, and then that's an important part. And if you're lucky enough to be at that stage where you haven't yet conceived, so you could be purposeful about preparing to conceive and to bring forth, I think that is a blessing, and it's an important conversation. So maybe we can have both those conversations.
Yes, please,
because as well as the birth plan. And you know me, I want to talk about everything, like those 0 to 12 years, the postpartum, everything. So yeah. Let me know if you have any other questions. Like I said, if you've been watching, please go to the Hebrew Home Birth Directory. Our sister Shamar Zura, she's put that together for us. And if you are a birth worker, register so that other people can see you. And if you're looking for a birth worker, then definitely you can find one. The other thing I want to let people know is that one good thing that's come out of COVID is that we're realizing that a lot of things we can still offer virtually. So even in this birth work, so I mean, the labor and delivery piece, if you want someone to be there in person, in particular if you're having a home birth, then that might be limiting depending on how close you are to your birth worker in proximity and location. But all the other consultations and coaching and support, even attending those doctor's appointments, everyone has a phone, everyone has some sort of social media or video access, so you can still get those support and those services. Even if your birth worker that you find and you connect is not living in the same city as you, right?
Yeah, and as a subscriber on Hebrew Home Birth, you can also opt to having that button on your page where users can go on and they can sign up to they can just press the button and then they'll see the birth worker's calendar and make a virtual meeting with that birth worker without having to go, back and forth with the email, because they just see their count. Once they press the button and they pick the birth worker, they'll see their calendar. They can press and have a consultation, and whatever that birth service provider would wants to offer in their if they just want to offer a consultation, then that's fine. They want it free. If they want it paid, then they have the option to do that as well.
Awesome.
And customize
And
it.
also, I just, sorry, so many things coming to mind for those sisters that are out there that are pregnant right now. Being pregnant during a pandemic is no easy feat. Being pregnant under normal, quote unquote, normal circumstances is not easy. And if you are having a birth or planning to birth at a birth center or at a hospital, please find out how many supports you're allowed in with you. So for example, my daughter was only allowed to have one support. So I provided support over the phone to her, for example. But that being said, again, you can find a birth worker that would be able to give you that support over the phone, whether it be video or audio, so that you can still have their presence and their support and their expertise on hand with you, even if you can't have their physical body with you in that space. If you're having a home birth, then it's different because it's your home. You can have who you like in your home, right? So that's just something to consider. For you sisters that are pregnant right now, if you don't have a birth worker support or a birth sister with you, I encourage you to make a list of questions for the next time that you meet with your midwife or with your doctor. And if you don't have time to make your questions before you go there, definitely ask your provider if they feel comfortable with you recording your visit so that you could go back and listen to it, so that if you have questions, then you can come back with your questions. You have options. You don't have to say yes to everything. You don't have to say yes to anything in that moment. And you should exercise your right to say, you know what, I'd like to take this away with me and think about it. Or I'd like to know, is there any other options? What other options do I have? And a lot of times they might pause because most people don't say, hey, I want to think about it, or what other options that you have. But if there are other options, they are required to tell you what they are, and they will.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing.
You're
that,
welcome.
That's very, very, very important. Very important. So thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
So excited to talk more about birth planning and everything else that, having that support and having an advocate that is for us can offer us. So shalom, and
Shalom.
We will see everybody at the next podcast.
Yeah, and put your questions down. We'll get you your questions too.
Please put your questions down.
Okay, shalom everybody, good night.